For years, there has been a bipartisan push in Washington to change laws, regulations, and incentives to make household appliances and goods more energy efficient. But as John Yang tells us, President Trump is moving to roll back some of those laws, arguing they've gone too far.
It's become a feature of President Trump's political speeches, highlighting what he says is excessive regulation of household goods. Take the Battle Creek, Michigan rally the night the House voted to impeach him. The president bashed stricter energy standards that would have phased out many incandescent bulbs on January 1st, which estimates say would have affected half the bulbs in light sockets in U.S. homes.
We're even bringing back the old light bulb. You heard about that, right? The old light bulb, which is better. I say, why do I always look so orange? You know why? Because of the new light. They're terrible. You look terrible. They cost you many, many times more, like 4 or 5 times more.
2 days later, the Energy Department announced it is keeping incandescent and halogen light bulbs on the market, saying the new rules would have been too costly for consumers. Earlier this month at a small business roundtable, the president's focus was on bathroom fixtures.
You turn on the faucet, you don't get any water. They take a shower and water comes dripping out, just dripping out, very quietly dripping out. People are flushing toilets 10 times, 15 times, as opposed to once. They end up using more water. So EPA is looking at that very strongly, at my suggestion.
The president has also taken issue with bans on plastic straws and has begun selling them on his campaign website. Environmental advocates say many of President Trump's claims are inaccurate or use outdated information. All of this comes with an election year on the horizon. Democratic presidential candidates have pledged to make climate change a top priority. The president has frequently denied or been skeptical of the scientific consensus on the issue. The Trump administration has also moved to roll back fuel standards on cars and trucks. That's a big part of America's daily lives and a big source of greenhouse gas emissions. Juliet Eilperin covers all of this for The Washington Post. She is in Columbus, Georgia for the holidays, and she joins us by Skype. Juliet, thanks so much for being with us. So light bulbs, low flow toilets, fuel efficiency for cars and trucks. What are other areas that the president is talking about and where he could have an impact on federal regulation?
He's looking at things including dishwashers, furnaces that people use in their homes, shower heads. So really kind of some of these everyday appliances that people are familiar with that affect their lives and, of course, use energy.
And have real impact, real effects. What are some of the experts saying, for instance, on the light bulb standards, not putting that in place? What's the effect of that?
So when you look at one of the independent estimates, it seems like this could cost up to $14 billion a year and emit an additional 38 million tons of carbon dioxide, which is equivalent to 30 coal-fired power plants running for a year.
And environmental advocates and Democrats have also been saying that the president, in some of these arguments, some of these things he's been saying, are not necessarily based on fact or maybe outdated information. What are some examples of that?
Well, he has talked about, for example, he said that women tell him that they have to press the button on their dishwasher 12 times to get their dishes clean, and it used to take 5 minutes. He's described the idea that for low flush toilets, you would have to flush them, between 10 and 15 times. So in many cases, he's describing kind of woefully inadequate functions that don't seem to comport with the real world performance of many of these more efficient appliances.
Yeah, the president ran on deregulation, and in the first year of his administration, he was pretty aggressive about it. But it was about things like industry, like power plants, coal-fired power plants. What's your sense of why he's focusing on these sorts of things now?
These are the kinds of changes, and when he talks about, if you like your old light bulb, you can keep it, that people have a tangible connection to, that it resonates more with people. The same thing with gas mileage and, what kind of car you drive. That's something that, again, most Americans can relate to, whereas most Americans, of course, they turn on their light switch, but they're not thinking about the power plant or the, solar or wind project that's powering it. So these kind of really tangible issues are ones that resonate, particularly when you're talking about the upcoming presidential campaign of 2020, where the president is again invoking the kind of nostalgia that has served him very well in the past.
One thing we know, Juliet, about the president's speeches is that if he gets something that he gets a reaction to, he keeps coming back to it over and over again. The fact that he's focusing on this, is that a sign that maybe he's tapped into something that resonates with his base?
You saw it when you showed the image for the clip from the Michigan rally. When he raised the issue of dishwashers, the crowd responded. They responded, when he raised toilets. So these are issues that connect to folks. And he is also, one thing that I think is so interesting is he is personally interested in these issues. He weighs in on them. He's asked his deputies to look into these issues. He said that he wants to weigh in when they finalize their rule, creating an exemption for certain kinds of dishwashers so they don't have to be as efficient. This is a president who ran a hotel chain and paid attention to the details, whether it was dust on the chandeliers or the condition of the rugs. And he understands how people have a tactile experience with their surroundings, and all of this is really playing in.
Juliet Eilperin of the Washington Post, thanks so much for helping us understand this.
My pleasure.